Good evening. I call this board meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Please be advised that in the event of a fire emergency, an alarm will sound. Please note all emergency exits and evacuate well away from the building. At this time, we request everyone turn off their cell phones to silence. Thank you for cooperation. First on our agenda this evening is additions, deletions, and changes. There are none, so we're going to move on to consent agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the following consent agenda. 1, minutes from 2/25/2025, 2, general warrant number 54, 56, and 58, 3, lunch warrant number 13, and 4, CSE recommendations. May I have a motion, please?
I move.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. We are going to move on to communications. We will start with points of pride. Dr. McNear, would you please start us off?
Sure. Mr. Gaffney and Mrs. Dupre hosted our annual 4th and 5th grade floor hockey tournament. The competition was fierce, the passion was high, and excitement was off the charts. Congratulations to our winning classes, Mr. Leonard's 5th grade class and Mrs. Lockwood's 4th grade class.
Last week, the elementary school Raiders came together for our second Raider 5 celebration of the school year. At this inspiring event, we honored students who exemplify our new Raider 5 values. Be kind, be safe, be accepting, be respectful, and treat others the way you want to be treated. Teachers selected outstanding role models who have best personified the Raider 5 so far this school year. We also celebrated our Raider Writer contest winners. Students submitted inspiring writing pieces about moments they witnessed the Raider 5 in action. Their words captured the heart of our school's values, and we couldn't be prouder. Congratulations to our 34 Raiders and all our Raiders who have earned shout-outs on the announcements and who earned Raider 5 bracelets showing their commitment to these values.
Our Calmum Elementary Chess Club competed in their 4th and final regional tournament of the season, hosted by Genesee Valley BOCES at the May Center in Mount Morris. Raiders added 4 more medals to their season collection, and according to Coach Yannick, did Calmum proud with their respectful manners, positive attitudes, and shining sportsmanship. Congratulations to our entire team for an amazing season. Special thanks to Coach Yannick for her support and effort in making the season a success.
The varsity indoor track and field team traveled to Nazareth College for the 2025 Class B3 Section 5 championships. Our girls team finished in 3rd place overall out of the 14 teams. Our boys team finished in 12th place.
Congratulations to junior Emma Brogan. Emma is the first Calmum indoor track and field athlete to qualify for the New York State Track and Field Championship. Emma set a new personal record and a new school record when she won the triple jump at the Section 5 tournament, reaching 37 feet, 9 3/4 inches, as she soared through the air in perfect form. Her win is truly historic.
Our middle school, high school archery club is preparing for the 2025 state tournament on March 14th. 13 Raiders qualified through a sanctioned event at Avoca High School and will represent our school at the state tournament.
Congratulations to our high school Brainstormers team. They defeated Livonia 370 to 170 and won 1st place in this year's Genesee Valley BOCES Brainstormers season.
Congratulations to the students who were selected for the 2025 All-County 3 Festival. The cast and crew of this year's middle school play enjoyed a celebratory outing. Directors Mrs. Schaaf and Mrs. Barber took more than 30 Raiders to the Auditorium Theater to watch the Broadway production of The Wiz.
That's fantastic. Lots of great things going on in our school. Dr. Chanel, any correspondence?
I would actually just like to welcome Mr. Bruce Capron. I'm going to give Bruce an opportunity to introduce himself to the board and, of course, to our community. Bruce, welcome aboard.
Well, thank you. It's certainly a pleasure to be here. And so, yes, my name is Bruce Capron, and I've been in education for really the second part of my career. I started out in engineering and technology, and really I got involved in education when I was in the Board of Education at Naples. And after 9 years on the board there, said, I think I kind of like education, and if I had a chance to do a second career, I'd really enjoy doing it in education. So I became certified and spent most of my career at Honeywell Falls Lima as the assistant superintendent there. And now I retired about 2.5 years ago, but get the chance to come back and work here, which is a real pleasure.
Wonderful, thank you.
Pleasure having you. The other thing I'll just share with the board is that I've been in communications with the local Penny Saver. One of the things that Mr. Nardone brought to mine and Mr. Capron's attention was just the timeliness of some of the communications that we need to turn around for our community with our newsletter around the budget. And the ability to maybe partner with the Penny Saver, while it might cost us a little bit, it might also give us a little bit more transparency, where right from the beginning when we're publishing, we should be able to get all of our numbers in, just by the nature of not having such a long turnaround time. So I just wanted to let the board know that that's something that I'm researching. We'll speak a little bit more about it as I get closer to really understanding the process of the newsletter creation. But I did want to share with you that the Penny Saver is beginning to quote some things for us and talk to us about logistics.
Are they making their quotes based on every household in the district having a Penny Saver delivered to them?
No, they actually would print for us and then do the mailing directly for us.
Oh,
so
okay.
Right now what happens is our local BOCES prints it for us, they send it to us, we then get it ready and we mail it out. Because we couldn't guarantee the Penny Saver getting to every single member of our community in terms of our voters, we would want to make sure that we still do direct mail.
Thank you.
So really, the big benefit here is how fast they can turn it around for us versus being in a queue at BOCES, which we value our BOCES partnerships. We have to be pretty early and on time with our information for BOCES to turn that back around for us. So there are several other school districts in our region that don't use BOCES just for their budget communications, just to make sure that they can get every last piece of information in. As you know, and we'll talk about it again tonight, like we're waiting still on the legislative budget, right? So because school has to maintain this timeline, everybody then gets in a line at BOCES for getting their stuff printed. So I wasn't surprised to learn that other schools have found other solutions, and the Penny Saver definitely seems to be a solution that a lot of districts use. So we're just going to do a little bit of research.
Thank you.
Is the Penny Saver a demand service, or would they need an upfront obligation from us?
It's a demand service.
Okay,
Great
great.
question.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to board committee reports. I believe that there were 2 committees that met, negotiations and our subcommittee for the CMCS Board Operations Manual. So could we have an update on negotiations, please, first?
I can speak. We received a proposal. We met, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and we've got meetings scheduled for the next, I think there's one this week and then a couple more scheduled out to hopefully come to an agreement. We received the Teachers Association proposal, and we're looking through it, and we will meet this week to discuss that back with them.
Thank you. Next is our board operations and policy manual. You guys met.
Yeah, we met, was it last week before?
Yeah.
Recently. And we went through our operations manual and just cleaned it up and made it more current for what we need, and I think we got through the whole thing and made good progress.
Does a follow-up meeting need to occur?
It does.
Yes, okay, so you're not done.
We'll get there.
All right, you didn't get it done on one night. No,
And-
thank you for your work on that.
And the elementary compact.
Thank you.
met.
Peggy.
And so I went for that part, and they're coming up with a secondary questionnaire to go out to parents to piggyback on the one in the fall and to see how everybody's doing. And that's basically what we talked about.
Okay, thank you. Am I missing any?
The middle high school compact did not have an official in-person meeting because that was the day of the girls sectional game, so it was virtual. Everyone got a draft of the middle school course catalog and kind of made a few more annotations to kind of update it, but it's pretty much getting almost to
Pretty
a
good,
final
yep.
state. It's coming along really well.
Thank you, everyone, for your work on those committees. It's truly important. We will move on to guests of the board. First, tonight, we have Mr. Patrick Longo. He is our NISBA rep, and he would like to just chat with us for a few minutes about the services that we have entered an agreement with him.
Thank you, appreciate it. On behalf of the New York State School Boards Association, our Executive Director, Bob Schneider, and our President, Sandy Rufo, really appreciate you having us out here. Since COVID, a lot of us, we do so many things virtually. It's nice to be here in person and just have a face. As member relations, we are your primary contact at NISBA. We consider ourselves the concierge, so to speak. Anything you need to know about the association, about our staff, what we do, our mission, our vision, how we can help you be the best board member you can be, the best executive team that you can be, the best clerk you can be. We're here for you. And I don't like to be in these kind of presentations like human brochure, but I just wanted you to just pay attention to this folder I brought you. We really, in the past, we used to send this to every new member, and then every time someone became board president, we still reach out in our own way, but we used to send everything. It was a packet like this. And people have likened being a board member drinking out of a fire hose. Right, you're just getting it from everywhere. You have a local school board association, a New York State School Boards Association, you have other associations, and you're getting all this information at once. And so we have always tried to reconfigure our programming to make sure that it's there for you when you need it and that you know how to get it. So I did hear we were talking about the board operating procedure, so I like that kind of synchronicity there. So I did bring, it's actually a blueprint for better school board operating procedures. So there's a lot of things like this, guides that we have. We put out a lot of information. Any school board subject, we have it. Right? So we don't just send it. You can always come to us and say, I need to know about this. So if you want to, on your own time, this brochure right here on the left-hand side, that's going to really tell you everything we do. We like to consider ourselves like a tree. Everything you see up top, our roots go deep and just as wide. Right? So again, we don't expect you to remember all that, but if you just think of two things. One is we consider everything we do, we put them in three buckets. The first one is advocacy. So we actually have a governmental relations team. We always say they're your eyes and ears in Albany. They're actually doing legislative advocacy for you, with you. We have an advocacy process that you can follow every single year where you actually have the opportunity to say, this is what we want you to do this year. And then the membership votes on that. So if you want to know more about that process, you can always contact us and we can get you more involved. You may be on the policy committee or be on the policy team. Right? We have a policy team that can help you better understand policy, provide sample policies for you, answer policy questions. Right? They're also advocating, but advocating in a slightly different way. We have a team of attorneys that can advocate on your behalf. We don't represent you in court. You had mentioned you spoke to one of our attorneys. Not every school board member is able to. Usually in your policy, it states that only the superintendent or the board president can contact your school or district attorney, usually, right, without approval of the board. Right? So we can be your second opinion, we could be your first opinion, but any questions that you have, we gladly will help you kind of mull it over. And we do publish something that's called the school law book. I've heard many superintendents say they use that as a textbook in their law class. One jokingly said, we refer to it as the Bible, right? And every time I visit a superintendent, I used to visit about 210 superintendents a year, and it was right there on the desk, and it was pretty dog-eared, right? So we try to present a lot of our information. That's the other bucket. We try to present it. Every team at NISBA is a team of writers, a team of presenters, a team of trainers. And so you're going to see the information from each subject matter area or expert. You'll find their expertise in on-board articles. You may find it in a guidebook, like the two guidebooks I'm just showing you. You may find it in emails, email alerts, telling you this is something coming up you need to consider. So every team is going to put out information. they're also advocating in their own way, like I was saying before. So I work in member relations. I know I'm here between the 10 amazing students that are being recognized today. Member relations, we do recognition. We have 6 different recognition programs. We recognize school board members for their service. We recognize students for leadership, extraordinary acts of leadership that they do. It's called Tomorrow's Leaders Today. Teacher programming, board programming, through a program called Champions of Change. We have Applause for the Cause. We have Culture of Caring. We're trying to recognize and advocate for the good things that you're doing. If we ever look at the press, we see a lot of negativity. Right, so we are trying to show everyone in state government, other districts, look at the wonderful things that are going on here. And our hope is that always that they will read that and they will emulate that. So now and then we come back and we award another district and they'll say, yeah, we learned it because we saw Champions of Change recognize them on social media. We saw that. Right, so we do that as well. All these guidebooks, again, we can mail them to you. You can call up and ask questions, and we can go through them with you. But something I want to note, again, going back to that whole idea of pushing out information and being like a fire hose, it's like, it's just too much. We are coming out with a new program, and it's called the New Member Onboarding Program. And we are utilizing a learning management system that takes you through by the month. So literally, if you can picture, you get on the board, this is what I need to know the day after the election. The next month in June, this is what I should know as a new school board member. Then July, this is what I should know. You guys are talking about the budget tonight. So we say you should start to really review budget considerations in November. December usually is called school budget month. Right? It's when you start to formulate it, talk about it. So you don't need to know that your first week on the board. However, we're going to say you should know about committees. You get on the board, you're voting for the president and vice president, you're being sworn in, and you're going to be on the policy committee. I know nothing about committees. And so that's the time to know about that. We are constantly looking at what you do, how you best learn. So everything we do, there's a virtual component. You can learn it virtually. You can learn it on hard copy that we can mail to you. You can learn it as a live training. The other thing that people don't know is with your benefits, sometimes people say, I'm not on the board. Right? This is not my association. So we support the board clerk, the board superintendent, the admin. Most of your admin are receiving, I hope you guys are getting on board, our newspaper and Eclipse, our news service. We want to make sure that the district avails us of the services wherever needed. During COVID, when board members were really getting heated discussions from the community, I actually gave out my cell phone number and said, you can have the community call me. You're paying for the membership. If it helps you, we will do that. Right? So look at these services that we provide as helping as much as the district to do well, as much as possible. Also, we meet with, in member relations, every year we send out an email to all the board presidents saying, will you meet with us for about a half hour? So we really have a good understanding what's going on, not in the state, not in the county, right, but literally in your district. So we also reach out to superintendents. So we have a superintendent meeting, right? District, board president, board and district, and then also new members, right? How can we help you be a better new member? Any member can call. Any member can have a meeting with us. So they're half-hour meetings. We use a service called Calendly, and literally in my email signature, so if you ever contact me, I will send you an email, and it will have a hyperlink that says, set up a meeting with me. And you can use that half hour to ask me any questions. Who do I need to talk to? Where can I get this? And 98% of the time, I know we can help you at NISBA. For that 2% we can't, we will work and do our best to make sure we can point you in the right direction. Maybe it's someone in state ed. Maybe it's the governor's office, right? But we can help you. So I just want you to get in that mindset. Again, I don't want to barrage you with brochures and marketing information, but just give me the mindset of, can NISBA help you with this? And again, I would say nearly 100% of the time, yes. You did note that we have a 24-hour answer policy.
Yeah, I got you.
I give out my cell phone. I do get sometimes board presidents will call 5-10 minutes before a meeting. Something just happened. What do you think about this? If I can help, I can, right? But I might say now and then, I'm not an attorney, right? But in my experience, it's something you might want to consider. but you actually can talk to attorneys as well, right? Policy folks, or communication folks. Anything that you need, we are really all about service, right? That's what you're paying for, and we want you to make the most of your membership. So again, feel free to reach out anytime. Sometimes with new members, and sometimes even veteran board members will say, I'm not the board president, so I can't call NISBA. You all can call NISBA. You can call 10 times a day. You can call 10 times a week, 10 times a year, once every 5 years. We just want you to know that we will help you, and we'll help you quickly and as accurately as we can. So I just wanted to open it up. You know, sometimes you give a presentation, ask questions. I don't expect you to have a lot of questions, but I want you to know I'm here to answer those questions anytime. So did you want to ask me anything that you might be wondering about, or?
Thank you.
It's good information, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say thank you. Thank you for coming out. I do think that face-to-face is important. Oftentimes, we purchase a service, and without that face-to-face component of making sure we all understand what's in there, it
Yeah.
will feel next year like maybe it's not worth the investment, but it is worth the investment, and we're using all the
Yeah.
tools and
Yeah.
access that you all have to help us be a better executive group.
Sometimes, you know, you can look at them as like brain drain. There's a lot of turnover in boards. Now, you guys might be a more consistent board, right? But you do get to a point when all of a sudden you get to a point where like, what do they do again? You know, so that's why we try to make sure that new members know, this is who we are, this is what you're paying for, this is what we do for you, right? So anytime you want me to come back out, local school board associations a lot of times have us present. You guys, I believe, are a member of Genesee Valley School Board Association.
Yes, we are.
I'm coming out in a week or 2 weeks. Pat Burke asked me to come out. So I always tell the local school board associations and districts across the state, the BOCES, same thing. You know, ask us, we'll be here, right? You asked us, we came out. So always happy to come out. Sometimes I say, but we're so far out. We will be here. Ask us and we will be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Sound
much.
good?
Thank you.
Yes,
All right, thank you so much, and congratulations to the students. We're looking
Thank
to
you.
hear about what you guys have done. Thank you so much, really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you? Please. I know, I'm watching. It's very challenging.
Mrs.
You're the
P,
one.
you're up next.
I know, here I am. Come on down. This is exciting. So I would love to introduce the class of 2025, Fellow Remembrance Top 10. I think we've got about 6 or 7 of them here tonight. It's a busy time of year. I didn't prep them for this, so I'm going to read your names in your order, and then if you're comfortable, will you tell the board your future plans for next year? How does that sound? All right, so valedictorian is Hazel Nickerson.
Hi. I'll be going to the University of Rochester to study biology on a pre-med path, and I'll be playing basketball too.
Oh, very good.
Congratulations. And our salutatorian is Lily Clement.
Hi, I'm not sure where I'm going to college yet, but I would like to study marine biology.
And number 3, right, Attila Balassi.
Yeah, I'll be going to the Rochester Institute of Technology to study journalism and communications.
Very good.
And then we have number 7, Chloe Kurtz.
Going to Nazareth University for Occupational Therapy.
Very good.
Number 8 is Grayson Funk.
I don't know where I'm going yet, but I have to study cybersecurity.
I wondered about that. Number 9 is Ryan Murdoch.
I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going to study music therapy.
Oh, great. And then number 10 is Jackson Funk.
I also don't know where I'm going, but I'm going to study computer science.
Excellent. Fantastic.
Congratulations to all of
Yeah,
you. We
we're
really
so
appreciate it. And also congratulations to the parents and the families that are here.
Yes.
I use this next chance to allow you guys to leave. I know you all have busy schedules, so now's a good time to leave if you'd like. If you'd like to stay and watch the rest of our board meeting. Why did you want to go?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Congratulations. 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 Good.
Oh, yes.
Thank you for coming.
Safe travels.
Thank you, I really appreciate it. Have a
Yeah,
good one.
thank you.
Next, we're going to move on to superintendent's report, but in true Dr. Chanel fashion, she's already jumped and completed her portion of superintendent's unless there's something
Well,
else.
I will tell you that today I actually got a phone call from the governor's office, impromptu. So it sounds like as the legislature is trying to reconcile the budget, all the conversation that happens on the back end of like building this tossed salad that they're making, the governor is losing a little bit of ground in the Senate in her legislation around the no cell phones in schools from bell to bell. So today's phone call was actually asking that we provide some sort of statement of support for the governor's mission for bell to bell. So one thing I did quickly share with the gentleman on the phone is that currently at Caledonia Mumford, and we'll learn a little bit about this tonight, we are currently looking at a budget deficit of $550,000. And so I asked a few follow-up questions about what will this rule mean? Will kids be able to keep their cell phones in their locker? Will that be enough? Or is the governor's legislation going to actually require that we purchase a lot of things to keep the kids, whether we're putting them in some sort of locker or they have these bags that you put them in to keep the cell phone safe? And they're not really sure. They're not able to give me 100% guidance on what the cost of the district is going to be. So while I support 100% the concept of uninterrupted instructional time, I did not give a quote of support and actually suggested that the Senate giving districts wiggle room to be able to manage what it is that the real goal is. We want uninterrupted instructional time in a way that is feasible at the local level. So I will just share with you that I did get a chance to advocate for us today in that regard. So our local BOCES, we spend quite a bit of time as superintendents talking about this and what really is going to be asked of us. And so I know I'm not alone in believing very deeply that academic time should be uninterrupted, but also that the added costs, which have not come out yet, is something that you won't see in our budget in terms of an additional cost, and yet we're already looking at $55,000 of debt to try to reconcile this budget. So I did get a chance to advocate for us today.
Thank you. There is no old business. We are going to move on to new business, and Dr. Chanel and Bruce will be doing the budget development presentation number 2.
Excellent. Okay. You want to join me? Come over here. Come stand right next to me, Mr. Cleveland. I remember sharing with the board that, Mr. Capron's experience was such that he probably wasn't going to have to be working 40 hours a week. Well, right now, we are very busy working together, trying to build a budget, understand a budget, and work through teacher negotiation. So I think in this beginning phase, I imagine we're probably working more than 40 hours a week right now, just trying to meet let's call it the consolidated demand of the time with so much happening at once. So we shall tag team this presentation. So tonight's presentation is really on the instructional budget. So last time we were together, we talked about some of the general supports, and we'll revisit a few of those things today. But the instructional budget is what our focus is going to be. I'm going to bounce forward here just a little bit to this particular slide. If you'll notice on the right-hand side when we're talking about the forecast of our appropriations or our expenditures, like what is it going to cost us to run our school next year, you'll notice that instruction is in blue. Instruction is actually the largest component of our budget. So I wanted to share that with you, and then I'll take you back to really what the instructional budget is. So our instructional budget really covers everything you can imagine that kids are touching, right? So our teachers are in here, our special education programs, the technology that our students touch, the library books, all the athletics, all of our extracurriculars. So when you think instructional budget and the size of it, just picture a student's day and acknowledge that everything that student encounters in their experience is part of the instructional budget. This particular budget that we're going to discuss here tonight has a few big budget priorities in it. Your administrative budget priorities are in this budget. So a few of those highlights would be, we talked about crisis support specialist and what we really could use at the elementary school. So I would just share with the board that this particular position would actually be on contract. We would be using a company that would be a vendor then of BOCES. It would make the contract 100% aidable. So although you'll see an increase in our budget next year when we get those aid checks, we would actually see revenue coming back from this particular contract. Our crisis support specialist that we're asking for is someone who would really be focused on helping students with behavior. These folks are highly trained at being able to manage behavior and really helping kids grow their ability to manage their body, their physical self, and also emotional regulation. We also, in this budget, are asking for those increases around elementary musical. As you know, we have now successfully pulled the elementary musical off 2 years in a row without increases to the elementary school budget. So what you would find if you were looking at our end of year planning, we are working very diligently with Principal Meyer to try to make sure that she can acquire all the textbook materials that she's going to need for the future school year. So just thinking about how not creating the increase causes us to have to decrease in another area, this budget does provide for the increase in her budget line. This budget also has a STEM teacher for the middle school programming. We've talked significantly for the last couple of years about the gap that exists, not just in program development overall, but that we do have that gap in the middle school master schedule where we'd like to see some more, not just enrichment opportunities, but some real academic and curricular alignment around some of the technology components that our kids will then experience across the high school program. And last but not least, this budget also provides increases for career and technical education. This year we have 37 students that are attending BOCES for career and technical fields. We imagine that with the push and the drive around the trades and certainly the interest that we're currently finding in our student body, that we want to make room for career and technical education in our budget. So the increases there will support our students' ability to continue going to BOCES. Career and technical education, this is when we're talking about welding, diesel mechanics, if our students are wanting to go into conservation, cosmetology, the metal trades. Those are not programs that we would be able to offer on our campus. So being able to partner with our local BOCES to provide these career opportunities for our kids should remain a top priority for us as a district. I shared this slide with you once already, but let's talk a little bit about our forecasted revenue and then those forecasted appropriations. So as I mentioned the last time, we talked about general support, transportation, the increases in employee benefits, and debt service and other. This time we are talking just about instruction. So you'll see that very large portion of the budget. And then of course, it's time to begin at least talking a little bit about our projected revenues. So I'm actually going to toss to Mr. Capron for him to share a little bit about what we're expecting in revenue.
So for revenue, right now, we're using the best data we have from the state. And in effect, the biggest increase that can be put toward instruction and operations is the increase in foundation aid, which right now we're estimating to be about $470,000. The other key part of the revenue is the property tax. And that looks like it'll generate about $175,000 of new money on top of, if you think about the increases. So both that amounts are sort of like the new money you can use for the increases, which, as instruction is mostly people, represents largely wages and benefits for all the staff and support providing instruction.
Right now, we have this forecasted appropriation where we're asking for a budget that takes care of all the things that we might need. So you're not just including the pieces I just talked about instruction, but if we go back to our last meeting, we talked about equipment replacement plans. We talked about making sure that we're funding our technology department to have replacement plans that we're not hoping for end of year spending, but that we're actually planning on replacement. This is what we would call the perfect view. If we could build a budget that allowed us to fund all of the things in our budget, and then we compare that against the forecast of our revenue, our budget gap is $550,149. So where are those increases coming from? The last time we were together, again, we did talk about general support, transportation, employee benefits, community service, our debt service and transfers, and our appropriated fund balance. And tonight we are focused in on instruction, so you will see that in this component, we are projecting a 5% increase budget year over year. Is there anything you'd like to add about this table?
Yeah, I think just the key part is the increase, as you and I've talked about with debt service, is with the new projects coming on and the way the capital projects are, that number looks like it's increasing significantly, but it'll be offset by an increase in building aid. So some of these aids on here, some of the things that fund things like building aid is based on how much you spend and you get a percentage of that back. So in reality, that's not driving the budget gap. it's, the other things.
Yeah, so overall, budget to budget, year over year, right now, we're looking at a 7.26% increase year over year. We are still waiting for state aid to come through. So, well, like Mr. Capron said, we do have some projections. So we are looking at a projected increase for Caledonia Mumford of the 473.06. But we're also watching what I would call a little bit of scurrying moving across. It doesn't matter if you're talking to folks from NYSBA or from NISCUS, or if we're talking about ASBO, the organization that helps our business officials. Everyone is really trying to gauge what is going to happen with the state aid formula. So the governor did, she hired the Rockefeller Center and she asked them to study what our foundation aid formula looks like, and to give her some feedback on what we could do different. They made quite a few recommendations, and right now folks are just sitting back wondering exactly what recommendations are going to be implemented. Depending on the recommendations that are implemented, we could see some pretty decent sized swings. So I would just tell you that right now, we will feel much better when we actually get a legislative budget. We always feel much better when we get a legislative budget, but in a year where change seems to be afoot and everyone is moving about, it does have that little added, not fear, but like, ooh, if only we had real numbers that we were building this budget on. So that budget is expected on April 1st. On-time budgets have become very rare. When I was in Albany last week and up on Capitol Hill talking to our senators and our assembly people, asked the question of them, how likely is it that we will see an on-time budget? And almost every one of them said, it is not likely. So we are waiting on the budget to come through. Also wanted to give you guys a glimpse into our capital outlay project. We told you that we are looking to replace some of the pneumatics that we currently have to go more digital. So tonight, just giving you some pictures of what that looks like. I imagine just looking at it, you can tell the difference between what is more original to this building with the pneumatic system there on the top, and what it will look like for us when we become much more digital. This particular capital outlay project will take care of about 40% of this particular building. So we'll still have about 60% of this work to do to transition the entire building off of the pneumatics and into the more digital era. In our next meeting together, when we talk about our budget, we will be sharing with you a more refined budget. Bruce and I are working with the administrative team. We're asking them to be very thoughtful about their current expenditures, asking them to look at programs that they are offering, maybe things that are not quite as fruitful as they used to be, asking them to consider the changes that we have had in the last couple of years in our administrative structure, and how might those administrative structural changes now actually create changes in other areas for us, where possibly we can shift some responsibilities and become a little bit more efficient. As they continue to look at their own programs and make recommendations back to us, we will be looking at how those recommendations for not necessarily cuts, but maybe for trimming in areas that no longer serve us in order to create the space for the budget requests that we are asking this year. In order to do that, I'll just remind the board that you have given us decision-making criteria and asked us to assess whatever it is that we're going to put on a list for the possibility of cuts or changes. These are our guardrails. As we're asking the administrative team to really look at their buildings and their programs, they will be asked to consider the guardrails, and then Mr. Capron and I will do the same thing when we make final decisions to bring back to the board. We'll continue to monitor that one-house budget and continue working with our revenue projections. So the next time we're together, you should see a more refined budget. Our numbers will most likely change in that we will begin talking to you about areas where maybe we need to trim. And it might not be what we've been accustomed to seeing. It might not be that everything that the new asks that we have are the first things that come off the table. It might actually be that there are some things that we've been living with for a bit that maybe we want to reorganize in order to make room for new programs. So that, I think, might be a little bit of a change for us. And so as an admin team, that's the kind of conversation that we're having as we're combing through what we do and why we do it before we come back to the board with major cuts or changes. And last, of course, our save the date. If we get an on-time budget, we would hope to vote on our proposed budget, have the board vote on that budget on April the 8th. If we do not have an on-time budget, as you know, we will push off until April 21st. That is currently a scheduled board meeting for us. We would not only vote on the budget, but we'd also vote on the BOCES budget and BOCES board members at that time. Then on May 13th, we will hold our public budget hearing. And on May 20th, we will actually hold our annual budget vote and the Board of Education election. What questions do you have for us?
I have a couple. One, what is the census of like kindergartners coming in? I mean, are we getting more money if we have more kids coming or not?
So
that doesn't make a big difference.
And Bruce, jump in at any time. So our projected state aid is coming from our numbers, and so they do look at our numbers over time. We have projections inside our student management system that help with that. So our WADA or our census data that they're using does drive our number.
Right. But I think Marlene answered the question is that it's this year's numbers or the numbers that the state already has that will drive next year's aid. They're always a little bit behind, even though they're trying to catch up a bit.
Oh, okay.
So more kindergartners next fall won't change our aid.
Oh, okay.
Most likely, unless
That's
they do
good to know.
Unless they do something crazy.
And then the big one is the teacher contracts. When does that get figured out? Because that's going to make a big difference, isn't it?
It is. So we would hope to have a negotiated agreement by the beginning of May, if all things considered. And obviously, as the board knows, when we're building our budget, we actually are going to negotiate around what the district can afford, right? So our budget and what you're looking at is us projecting what we can afford to do in a contract negotiation cycle.
Okay.
Any other questions? Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'm going to move on to the secret for the 2025-2026 capital outlay. This requires individual votes by board members after I read this, so I'll read and then I'll do a round table and do the votes. Resolution of the Board of Education of the Caledonia Mumford Central School District determining that project for replacement of pneumatic devices is a type 2 action, March 11, 2025. Whereas the Caledonia Mumford Central School District is undertaking the replacement of the pneumatic control devices on various equipment at the middle school and high school, and whereas the district now desires to comply with the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act and the regulations in 6 NYCRR Part 617 adopted by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation with respect to the project, and whereas pursuant to regulations, the district has considered the project in light of the actions included on the Type 1 list specified in Section 617.4 of the regulations, and in light of the actions included on the Type 2 list specified in Section 617.5 of the regulations, and now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the district as follows. 1, the district has determined that the project constitutes a Type 2 action because it falls clearly within the ambit of 3 actions included on the Type 3 list specified in Section 617.5 of the regulations. 2, the project is not subject to further review under SECRA. And 3, notwithstanding that the project is not subject to further review under SECRA, the district will continue to comply with the New York State Education Department guidelines for school district implementation of the State Environmental Quality Review and associated charges in the SED building permit process, which requires consultation with the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. And 4, a copy of this resolution shall be provided to the New York State Department of Education. I will go around and do votes individually. Dr. McNair?
Yay. Yes.
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 And I vote yes. So we will sign that probably after the meeting's over and submit that. 3, acceptance of gifts to the school district. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, accept a gift donation of 30 new singlets from the Calmon Wrestling Club. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Second. Any discussion? Sounds good.
Do you, in our backup notes, it was explained that there is a uniform replacement policy that the district does have for this, but this was a beyond, just a generous donation for people who might say, wait a minute.
Yes.
Yep.
Very generous.
Good question.
Yeah.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Number 4, approval of the 2025-2026 instructional calendar. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the instructional calendar for the 2025-2026 school year. May I have a motion, please?
Sure.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. We are moving into executive session. I would like to invite Mr. Capron in with us to discuss negotiations, as long as there's no objection from the board, and then we will excuse him when we're done discussing that. Resolved that the Board of Education adjourn to the executive session at 6:46 p.m. to discuss the employment and employee history of particular persons. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make it.
A second?
Yep.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried. Resolved that the Board of Education return to regular session at 8:36 p.m. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make it.
A second?
Yep.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. We're moving to personnel, 1 through 2, approval of substitute and approval of resignation. Approval of substitute. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve Justine Lathan Arthur as a teacher and tutor substitute for 2024-2025 school year. Motion, please.
I'll make it.
Second.
Yep.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion is carried. Approval of resignation. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, accept the resignation of an elementary teacher effective April 4th, 2025. Motion, please.
I'll make it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion is carried. We're moving to adjournment. Resolved that the Board of Education adjourn the meeting of March 11th, 2025 at 8:38 p.m. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make it.
A second?
Yes, second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion is carried. Have a good night.